AITA for not inviting my father to my wedding because he told me I wasn't his daughter anymore. So, here I am, almost 29, and I'll be getting married next month. Exciting, right? Except, I didn't invite my dad, and now he's suddenly trying to get in touch, wanting to fix things. Honestly, I've spent years working through the emotional mess he left me with, but now, I'm starting to doubt myself. So, I guess I need to explain the backstory here. I'll start at the beginning. My parents divorced when I was 6 because my dad cheated on my mom with a woman who would later become my stepmom. Pretty classic story, right? My mom raised me, and I spent most of my time with her, but during holidays and summer vacations, I was sent to stay with my dad. I hated it, even back then. It was like stepping into a completely different world, a world where I felt like an outsider. When I was 8, my half-brother Jake was born. Now, I love Jake, and we've always been close. But even as a kid, it felt wrong how much I was forced into a caretaker role whenever I visited. It wasn't just the occasional babysitting. I became Jake's default caregiver. No one ever asked me if I wanted to help. I was just expected to. My dad would dump Jake on me and then disappear with my stepmom. They'd go out to dinner or to the movies, but I wasn't invited. I was only there to make sure the house didn't burn down and to change diapers. Fast forward to high school. My mom got a great job abroad when I was 14, and she had no choice but to move. I had to live with my dad full-time. I remember her telling me it was temporary, that we'd figure it out, but even then, I could see how hard she was working to make a better life for us. She thought it was the best option, and maybe it was, but it didn't feel like that at the time. Living with my dad was hell. It was like I didn't exist except to do chores or take care of Jake. My dad and stepmom would go on vacations, and it was always the same excuse. This is a family trip, or we don't have enough money to take everyone. Only everyone met my stepmom and Jake, and I was just extra. The worst was when I was 14. My dad told me they were planning a family trip to Disney. I was thrilled, thinking maybe this time I get to go. But the day before they left, he pulled me aside and said, "You're not coming. We want this to be a special trip for Jake." Just like that. I was crushed. That week, I was left home alone, watching them live the life I was never part of. The older I got, the worse it became. I tried talking to him, but nothing ever changed. He had this ridiculous rule that I couldn't have friends over because teenagers together only caused trouble. It was embarrassing, especially since we had a neighbor who would literally spy on me for him. If my dad was out of town, he'd call randomly to make sure I was home. It felt like I was under house arrest. Then when I turned 18, things exploded. My dad got a promotion and decided to take another family trip, this time to Europe. I was excited thinking this is it. I'm finally included. But nope. He sat me down and told me that the trip was a celebration for Jake's 10th birthday and that they couldn't afford to take 4 people, so I'd have to stay behind. Again, that's when I lost it. I told him everything. How unfair it was, how hurt I'd been all these years, how he treated me like a burden. Instead of listening, he flipped it around. He called me ungrateful and spoiled. He had the audacity to say I lived with him rent-free, which was complete garbage because my mom sent money every month to cover my expenses, and I did all the housework since both he and my stepmom worked late. It all escalated, and he ended the argument by kicking me out of the house. He said, "You're no longer part of this family. You're not even my daughter anymore." He literally threw me out and dumped my things on the sidewalk. I had nowhere to go. I was devastated, and I spent the night in my friend's house. Her parents helped me pick up the pieces, literally. The next day, I went back thinking maybe he'd calm down, but nope. My things were still out on the curb, and some of it had even been thrown in the trash. The only thing that kept me from breaking down completely was my stepmom. She wasn't a bad person. She saved a few things for me and handed them over when I showed up. I guess she felt bad, but she was too passive to ever stand up to my dad. After that, we didn't speak. The only time I heard from him was a month later when he called to yell at me because my mom stopped sending him money for me. That was it. I was on my own. Thankfully, I got into a good college out of state and met my fiancé, Mark, during my first semester. He's been my rock through everything. I threw myself into school and my relationship, and honestly, I've built a good life without my dad. But here's the kicker. A few months ago, when Mark proposed, I guess someone told my dad about the engagement. He messaged me out of the blue on Instagram, acting all excited, like nothing had ever happened. He said he couldn't wait to walk me down the aisle and help out with the wedding. I was floored. Like, did he really think he could just waltz back into my life after everything he'd done? I responded, telling him that my stepdad would be walking me down the aisle and that the wedding was small just for close family. Then I blocked him. I expected some kind of blowback, insults, angry messages, but instead I got a letter. And guess who delivered it? Jake. He's the only one from my dad's side that I've kept in contact with. In the letter, my dad said he regretted everything and that after kicking me out, he felt empty. He wrote that seeing pictures of me graduating with my mom and stepdad made him realize what he'd lost. He claimed his pride kept him from reaching out sooner and that he wanted to make it right by paying for my wedding and walking me down the aisle, fulfilling the promise he made to himself when I was born. Honestly, I don't know what to think. Part of me feels like this is just too little, too late. It's been years. I've moved on. He never tried to be a father when it mattered, and now he's coming back because he's feeling guilty. It feels like a convenient time for him to want redemption when the spotlight is on me. I don't need his money, and I don't want him at my wedding. But still, I can't help but wonder, am I being too harsh? Mark and my friends say I'm right to stand my ground, but I can't shake the feeling that maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I should give him a chance? I don't know. AITA for not inviting him to my wedding?